Hi everyone, I'm Matt, and welcome to 10 Minute Story. Today, we're heading into one of the most misunderstood and surprisingly bizarre periods in history, the Middle Ages. We're used to thinking of medieval life as dark, dirty, and a little dramatic. But the truth? It was also filled with some truly strange customs, the kind that make you blink twice and say, wait, they did what? So here are 10 strange, hilarious, and sometimes disturbing medieval customs that actually happened, and what they tell us about the world back then. 1. Animals could go to jail. Imagine this, a pig tramples a child. Tragic, yes, but what happens next? In medieval France, the pig would be arrested, placed in a cell, and put on trial, complete with a judge, a prosecutor, and even a defense lawyer. There are dozens of documented cases, pigs, cows, even rats and insects being charged with crimes like murder, vandalism, or public disruption. In 1386, one pig was not only found guilty, but executed by public hanging, and dressed in human clothes for the occasion. The idea? That all creatures were subject to divine and earthly justice, even the chickens. 2. Bathing was suspicious. Forget your bubble bath routine. In much of medieval Europe, bathing was controversial. People believed that warm water opened the skin's pores, allowing disease and evil spirits to enter. Worse, public bathhouses were often associated with immoral behavior. Some were even shut down during plagues for fear they were spreading illness or sin. That said, early medieval people weren't as dirty as we assume. Nobles often had perfumed cloths, and peasants used herbs and vinegar scrubs. Still, if someone smelled too clean, neighbors might whisper, who are they trying to impress? The dancing plague of 1518, yeah, it really happened. It started with just one woman dancing uncontrollably in the streets of Strasbourg. But within a few days, dozens of others had joined in. They kept going for hours, then days, until some of them actually collapsed, some even dying of exhaustion. And believe it or not, this wasn't just a one-time thing. Similar dancing manias broke out in places like Germany, the Netherlands, and even Italy. People back then blamed all sorts of things: demonic possession, stress-induced hysteria, or even a hallucinogenic fungus called ergot. Incredibly, the local authorities didn't try to stop it. Instead, they actually hired musicians to play for the dancers, hoping they would just, dance it out. Imagine treating an epidemic with a party. So, feeling sick in the 13th century? Well, you had some, options. Got a headache? The solution might be to drill a small hole in your skull. This was called trepanation, to let out those evil spirits. Stomach pain? You'd be told to drink a brew made from mouse bones, rosemary, and roasted cat guts. And if you had epilepsy, you might end up wearing a piece of a dead man's skin in an amulet. A lot of these treatments were based on humorism, which was the belief that your health depended on keeping 4 bodily fluids in balance. If your black bile was high, a doctor might actually prescribe leeches or bloodletting. Let's just say, medieval pharmacies were not for the faint of heart. No jury, no forensics, just you, pain, and the will of God. If you were accused of theft or heresy, you might have to face a trial by ordeal. So for example, you could be asked to carry a red-hot iron bar for 9 steps, or maybe you'd have to plunge your arm into boiling water. Sometimes you'd be tied up and thrown into a river. If you floated, you were guilty, since the water rejected you. But if you sank, you were innocent, though honestly, you were probably dead. These trials were terrifying and cruel, but back then people thought they were fair. If you were innocent, divine intervention would protect you. Spoiler alert, it rarely did. Before people knew about germs, they came up with some, pretty creative explanations for why folks got sick. Got a toothache? People thought it was caused by these tiny worms living right inside your teeth. Some remedies actually involved burning herbs to, try and smoke the worm out. And if you had a cough, it might be blamed on demons, so you could end up rubbing a live frog on your throat or even swallowing honey mixed with powdered mouse bones. Sneezing too much? Time to hang a piece of wolf liver around your neck. Let's just say the medieval medicine cabinet was, honestly, way more terrifying than helpful. Now, quick question for you. If you lived back in the Middle Ages, which of these customs would drive you absolutely crazy? Or maybe just make you laugh? Let me know in the comments. And if you're enjoying this wild ride through the weird side of history, don't forget to hit that little button below and support the channel. Let's keep this curiosity train going. Medieval fashion could be, well, absurd and sometimes even deadly. Take poulaines, for example. Those were shoes with super long, pointy tips. The longer the toe, the higher your status. Some of these shoes were so long they actually had to be tied to your knee just so you could walk. And then came codpieces. Yeah, those awkward bulges in men's trousers, designed to show off masculinity. Church officials were scandalized, satirical poems made fun of it, but honestly, the trend just caught on. Fashion back then wasn't just about looking good. It was a statement of power, and sometimes it got taken to some pretty wild extremes. Think armor with massive shoulders, hats that were 10 feet tall, or gowns so huge they needed 3 people just to carry them. Beauty was, well, risky. A pale face was considered the height of beauty, but honestly, how you got there was a whole other story. Women used white lead powder, yeah, highly toxic stuff, to lighten their skin. Some even drank vinegar and chalk, or, believe it or not, arsenic. Eyebrows? Those were shaved off. And foreheads? Plucked to look higher. Rouge made from crushed bugs was actually pretty common. Oh, and get this. Some noble women stained their teeth black just to show they could afford sugar. So, medieval beauty often meant suffering and sometimes even death, all in the name of elegance. So, dating wasn't really a thing back then, but people still, fell in love. Courtship had some pretty strict rules and young couples were often supervised. One strange tradition? Hand fasting. Basically an informal engagement where 2 people declared themselves married for a year and a day. In some places, couples could even share a bed before marriage, with a wooden board separating them. Sometimes they were literally sewn into the bed sheets just to avoid temptation. Talk about long-distance cuddling. Here's a real-life horror story for you. The Cadaver Synod. In the year 897, Pope Stephen VI had his political rival, the late Pope Formosus, exhumed, dressed up in papal robes and, get this, placed on a throne. Yes, a dead body. He was put on trial, found guilty, stripped of his titles, and thrown into the Tiber River. The public was, understandably, horrified. Riots broke out. Pope Stephen was imprisoned and strangled soon after. Medieval politics weren't just brutal, they were theatrical, creepy, and honestly often fatal. Here's a wild bonus: excommunication, for insects. In several medieval cases, swarms of locusts, weevils, or mice were actually brought before church courts. Why? To be excommunicated. The clergy would issue formal documents warning the pests to leave. If they didn't, they were cursed and expelled from the church. Of course, the insects didn't comply, but it really shows how deeply people believed in the power of words and rituals, even against Mother Nature. So, what have we learned? The Middle Ages were weird, but wonderfully so. Behind all those absurd customs were real people just trying to understand their world, protect their loved ones, and make sense of the unknown. Their methods might seem strange to us now, but honestly, they were doing their best with what they had. And hey, maybe centuries from now, people will look back at our time and wonder, wait, they used what on their faces? They let algorithms pick their partners? They danced in virtual concerts? Maybe weirdness is really just a matter of perspective. If you loved this trip into medieval madness, make sure to subscribe and check out our videos on weird ancient professions, the history of money, or the science behind animal behavior. Every day, a new pill of curiosity. See you next time.